Welcome to the very first episode of FREEBIRD. I'm so excited to share this with you. I am Mary, your host and the CEO and co-founder of One Love Community Care and One Love Humanity. I'm the visionary behind FREEBIRD and Goddess Revolution. Our empowering platforms invite real people from all walks of life to share their voices, their hearts, and their stories. Right here on FREEBIRD, we will delve deep into mental health challenges with compassion, understanding, and hope. Our episodes will explore intimately topics such as neurodivergence, transgenerational trauma, relationship dynamics, life after abuse, and the journey of recovery, healing, and renewal. With a foundation in trauma-informed practice, cultural sensitivity, and holistic methodologies, I aim to empower the human spirit and provide a safe space for meaningful conversations and connections where people can integrate and embody their authentic selves. You can reach us at www.olcc.au and let us know how we can support you further. So today we're introducing Melissa Fitzwilliam. Have I said your name correctly?
Absolutely.
A devoted woman, an artist whose life revolves around her family, the surf, swimming, animals, wildlife rescuing, and community support. Melissa's story is one of resilience and strength. She's a survivor of child abuse and neglect, critical injuries that left her severely scarred, and a 9-month hospitalisation journey. Removed from her parents and placed into care. And I know that you have also mentioned that you have been taken care of by your grandparents as well, in and out at that time. So I just wanted to honor that. Melissa faced a difficult childhood marked by PTSD, anxiety, trauma, and chronic health issues, including endometriosis. Her journey also includes surviving date rape, domestic violence, and the challenges of being a single parent while battling mental health challenges. Undiagnosed with ADHD until last year, Melissa experienced a revolution that provided countless aha moments, helping her make sense of her experiences. Through her dedication to healing, Melissa has transformed her life. Yay.
Absolutely.
Transformed her life using natural medicine, which I'm really super intrigued to hear about as well, to manage her chronic health conditions. Her story is not only about survival, but also about the beautiful process of healing, recovery, and the positive, inspiring path she now walks. So in this podcast, Melissa shares her story with the world for the very first time. So it's such an honor to really bring you on. And also this is the very first FREEBIRD podcast that we're sharing through social media, but on like for the world as well. So it's almost like you're the representative of this beautiful FREEBIRD energy that we're birthing into life. And so, yeah, so such an honor to actually be able to hear your story and explore the depths of your experiences. So that is your welcome.
Yes, thank you.
And where would you like to start? How would you like to share the beginning of your journey?
Well, firstly, I would actually like to say it's an absolute honor, and hopefully this being the very first show for FREEBIRD, it inspires others to actually step out and be able to share their story, and with lots of encouragement and love. So I am really happy to be that first person,
Yay.
that soldier to get out there. Where would I like to start? Actually, where would you like me to start, Mary? Yeah.
I might ask you to take us through some of your experiences and what has take us through some of your experiences, some maybe some of the dark night of the soul that you experienced, and what has brought you to this place of sharing your story. Maybe start with that.
Absolutely. Okay. It's so much to kind of bundle up and speak about, but what I would like to share and actually really begin and touch on is the relative to abuse and neurodivergency and parents with neurodivergency, and probably that generational history that goes through that cyclic abuse. So obviously that's something that has happened to me. And I think it's very, very important that we really look at the depth and the reality of how that plays out in families. So, as you've introduced and shared some of my story, the first 3 years of my life was extremely difficult. And I didn't receive the nurture, the love, and the upbringing that every innocent child in this world should. However, I do believe what we go through makes us who we are today. So, definitely not negating that at all. And it was, look, it was something that basically created like the scope for the rest of my life. Well, my early years life, definitely. And it really shaped my childhood, my teenage years, and my early 20s. Probably more than what I actually realized until I kind of started moving back and working through all of the things. So yes, for the first 3 years, I had an extremely hard time, and I went through all the struggles of an abused and neglected child.
Is that
And
your
I,
first 3 years of life, Melissa? Is that
yeah, the
okay?
first 3 years of life. And if you look, so I'm 42, and if you think about it, realistically, the awareness around child abuse and the ability for, say, the public systems and things like that to actually pick that up and recognize was not the same as it was today.
Mm.
So obviously, I can't speak too much about my parents, but what I can say is they were very young. My mother, in particular, had her own history of trauma, abuse, and neurodivergency. And there was absolutely no help and support for her and what she was going through on her journey. And so she struggled immensely with me, which obviously the outcome was what we spoke of. So coming to the near end, so when I was 3, I did suffer bad, actually, injuries, third-degree burn injuries, which were left untreated. And so I developed malnutrition and septicemia as well. And the Plunkett people, so when they came in and really spoke to the hospital and the police and all of that kind of things, they had no idea that this was actually going on. So it's really interesting that even a Plunkett nurse, has been visiting a family home, is not able to pick up what is going on.
Mhm.
So I was hospitalized, and during that time, I went through, huge recovery and healing processes, and I was in hospital for 9 months. And interestingly enough, once my wounds began healing and I had the ability to be able to go into water, a lot of my rehabilitation was actually done in water.
Which
And
explains why you love your
that's why I'm
water
a mermaid.
and you're a mermaid and your surf and the swimming. Okay, so water essentially actually healed your spirit and your body.
Absolutely. Water basically helped me, I believe, in that containment of nurture. And if you think about when we are, in utero and in the womb, and we are in water, and, it's that safe space and that type of thing. So absolutely rehabilitated me and actually created, I will say, a very good swimmer. So later on in my later childhood years, I did competitive swimming. But that was kind of the
That's
start.
that's also amazing
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
to utilize and access what has helped you survive to really actually bring you into a place of being an amazing swimmer. Like you've
Yeah.
alchemized that.
Opening up a gift, and I do give thanks to that part of rehabilitation, because when I am in the water, I am one with the water. I move like I am part of the water, and it's like I understand it. I'm also a double Pisces rising, so on 0 degrees. So, that's very watery, and it all of these things kind of interlink. But that was a really, really important part. And I actually did my first competitive swimming when I was 5 years old. So very little. But
Wow.
yeah, so after hospital,
And sorry, Melissa, did you choose what inspired you to compete at 5 years old?
So I was with the care, I was placed in actually with my auntie. So my grandparents took me and my auntie actually had me and they put me into swimming and swimming lessons.
Okay, fantastic.
My grandfather used to take me out in the ocean all the time and then I was placed into swimming. It was kind of the only thing that actually I did well with in those younger years in life, like everything else, schooling, friends, all that kind of thing was just basically not a very good time for me. So they really encouraged and supported and pushed me to do that. So yeah, that's who did that. And I still remember, the little kiddie swimming pool that we competed in. This 20-meter or something tiny at the Dalton Swim School. So yeah, look, that's a really special part. And I think if I hadn't have had the water, then I don't think I would have, maybe I don't think I would have survived, to be honest.
Mhm.
So yeah, I
That
came out.
that was your saving grace, and I guess also like that's also an inspiration for other people listening is whatever it is that gives you
Yes.
life, cling on to that and bring that into you. Um,
Yes, whether it's song, whether it's craft, whether it's walking, whether it's being out in nature or whatever it is, there is always something that heals our soul. And if we can lean in and find these things and realize, obviously they're a part of us as well, they are the things that get us through. They are they're our medicine. They are absolutely what we need. And the planet offers all of those things if we open our eyes to it. So yeah. And I
mm,
think we meet different people along the way who inspire us, or we see, especially with the technological kind of world nowadays, we see people doing things online. But my suggestion is for people that if they intuitively keep getting a nudge to do things, even if they don't think they're good at it, or if they just have this yearning desire, just do it.
mm,
Like it could be your saving grace, as you
absolutely.
say.
And
Yeah.
whatever that is, like I love that, whether it's nature, whether it's learning a new course, whether it's upskilling yourself, finding a new network, absolutely go there.
Yeah. 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 So um, I think it's also important to point out that the recognition of neurodivergency. So I actually, during those first 3 years, I was actually mute and couldn't walk, which we now know. Do you know what I mean? That's part of being neurodivergent. And so, if you can place yourself into the shoes of being an extremely traumatized parent with their own neurodivergency, then trying to parent a neurodivergent child who is
Absolutely.
mute and couldn't even walk, extreme hypermobility and things like that, the help definitely wasn't there. So the outcome, I have a lot more grace with the outcome. And I do want to let my listeners know that I have absolutely been in a space of forgiveness to my family for quite some time now. I did have a lot of angry years as a child and as a early teenager growing up. But I think once I became a mother myself and had the understanding of what it's like to be a parent, I was able to move into a space of that forgiveness. And obviously not everybody can find that. And obviously not everybody is going to get what they're seeking perhaps from the people that have been through trauma and things with, but you can find that within yourself, and it's there and it's available to everyone. And I think it's a really important part of our journey.
Absolutely. That's really beautiful. And I am hearing you saying that as a parent, parenting your own children helped you with the forgiveness cycle. Would you say that you were able to almost give your children what you weren't able to receive yourself, or were you mothering your own inner child, or like what part of that cycle for you allowed you to understand deeper the traumatic effects of your family and your generational trauma?
Yeah, unfortunately, Mary, no, that's not the case. And for me, with my own daughter until much later on. I really struggled with parenting her, and she also is neurodivergent. So
Explain to the viewers what your what your definition of neurodivergence is for those
yeah,
of
yeah.
listeners
Oh,
that
ADHD. We also have autism in our family. We also have a long history of what, they say diagnosed mental illness, which is actually not.
it's such a creative, diverse way of thinking, though. Our brains are so diverse. They are not a one-stop shop.
No, and I think there's two parts to this. And if you would visit kind of any normal psychiatrist, they would say that trauma in general can have a lot of like ADHD or neurodivergent kind of symptoms, because obviously the nervous system is dysregulated, the adrenaline is constantly firing, and there's just lots of different things. But if you actually go really in depth and trace it back to just a small child, it's kind of impossible for some of these things to be showing, it's impossible for the things that are showing up just to be related to trauma. And so I think that for me, what neurodivergency is I'm not, well, part of it is a gift, part of it is a curse. I believe that we view the world through slightly different lenses. And so we are tuned into a different radio station where we use more feeling, where we use more intuition. But it does mean that we struggle because we are extremely hypersensitive to our surroundings around us, whether that can be walking into a room when there's loud music and it makes you feel like you want to vomit, or needing that, you need to have that downtime in that safe space. But you can be highly creative because of it. You can be highly inspirational. You can be a speaker that speaks to other people. There's so many things that are kind of born from it, but then you struggle with, for me, for example, like I can't do maths.
Mm-hmm.
Like I really can't do
Yeah,
maths.
no, same. I
And it's
report at
bad.
school went down into a time capsule
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
like looked at, I think it was 100 years into the future for like someone who is so poor at maths. So I'm totally like with you there.
Right. Right. And one of the hard things I think is the measures for the diagnosis is, they still relate a lot to your childhood, but don't actually look at how you present in adulthood, which I find extremely strange. That really needs to be updated, and that's super
Absolutely.
archaic.
Research needs to be updated.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Melissa, let me ask you, at what point in your life did you struggle? I know that you spoke about, being 3 and hospitalized and coming out and leaning on the saving grace of water and learning how to swim again. So at what point in life did those traumatic experiences that you accumulated as a child actually start to impact maybe, say, your teenage years or into your 20s? Like, what happened?
The whole way through. The whole way through, I was impacted and traumatized. And even I was so bullied at school, and because I couldn't walk properly, I had like special hospital boots and things like that. So I was very ostracized, and I couldn't. I just couldn't do a lot of the things that other children could do, and so that created an even worse. Do you know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
basically anxiety. So I remember being so anxious and just so nervous and just absolutely not wanting to be in the spaces that I was in, and I didn't fit in anywhere. The only place I fitted in was in the water. So
Right. That
it's
actually brings my heart to so much joy when you say that. I feel, wow, at least that there was a form of mothering and nurturing and cleansing for you available. You had something available. So you
yeah.
didn't fit in anywhere else, basically.
No, no. And I think one of the biggest things that, if I can kind of put it into words now, which I didn't understand when I was younger, was dealing with a dysregulated nervous system and
Uh-huh.
being in constant hyper, overdrive.
Fight,
So
fight, flight, or fawn.
Yeah, and the physical, the physical like reactions that would happen, and thinking to myself, what is it? I remember like as a child, like, what is wrong with me? Like, why is this happening? And that, yeah, like it's really hard to battle with. And then anything that came around that was physical, so having, if I had to go for any hospital trips, or if I had to go for anything like dental, anything that involved needles. So one of the parts of my treatment, I was continuously pricked with
Okay.
needles in hospital. So I had this extreme phobia. And you might say, oh my God, you're
That's,
pierced. You're pierced, you're turning.
that's how it is, and you can, but yes,
I actually
it's a different.
trained as a piercer in my later years to deal with the PTSD
Wow,
around needles. And
amazing.
I tell you what, that was like 2 years of feeling like my insides were churning inside out and trying not to pass out from the PTSD. And I bet it, and I did it.
I so want to go there. So I'm just going to park because I feel like that really does need to be celebrated. And also, it's like a real acknowledgement of your ability to take, which is what I was saying before, take these traumas and these experiences and actually channel them into goodness and channel
Yeah.
them into, from mental health challenges to like mind power and emotional resilience. So I'm going to just park that for a moment because I want to come to that. But
Yeah.
with the trauma in your relationships, can you talk a little bit more about the trauma, your relationships, maybe the PTSD? I know that you said that there was date rape, but I don't know if you want to go into that or not, or how you want to speak about
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
Because
Um,
you've experienced some challenges in your life, and
yeah.
this is a real ability for people to kind of understand that they can go through the dark night of the soul, they can go through hell and back,
Yeah.
and absolutely fall to their knees and then rise up again. And you're a living example of that.
Yeah, I think we can kind of go one way or the other with our
Yeah,
challenges and our
absolutely.
experiences. And if we can kind of grapple with that inner kind of shadow work, as we would call it, and, it's like peeling the onion layers off, there's bit by bit by bit. But I think moving back into the relationship side of things, as we know, again, like the psychology of things, anyone who has not had the fundamental boundaries of love given to them, and when they're younger. So obviously, those first few years of life are very, very important for us to develop that and that understanding. It does mean that people usually end up with abusers as well. And that's absolutely what happened to me, being kind, compassionate, caring, kind of innocent in a way. And then you will meet, people, partners in relationships who have their own things. And what do we want to do when we've been through pain and suffering? What do we want to do?
Okay, so this is what I want to go into.
Yeah.
So we want to rest, essentially we want to save others, we want to
Yeah. We
protect
want to
the
rescue,
pain,
we
we
want
want
to
to rescue
help.
them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So we end up basically in these situations that, and people would be like, oh, like just walk away or just do this or just do this. Now, I do want to share that my time in a domestic violence relationship was actually quite short,
Okay,
because I was very on to what was going on, and
that's
I
a great thing.
got out. But I how it changed the mind, and it actually just really threw me into like a different side of PTSD and anxiety. Do you know what I mean? Because all this unsafeness, is coming up, and this is, you've got your adult mind going, I know this is not how it's supposed to be. But yeah,
I guess
that's a whole big topic: domestic violence and abuse survivors. And there, you can do it, you can get out of it. You have to have the right support structure, and definitely noticing the cyclic patterns that happen, the way women speak about it. Women have to air it, they have to speak about it. And, their friends and family. I think my biggest message to anybody that knows someone that's in a domestic violence relationship is, let them talk and do not get angry with them if they are not leaving straight away.
absolutely. And I was having a conversation with a really beautiful woman the other day, and in the conversation we were speaking about different levels of abuse and different dimensions of abusing power as well. And my message, and this is like, it was kind of in my face, but my message for the viewers is, if you're in a situation, in a relationship where you are being silenced, that is actually also a form of domestic abuse. And so it's not just physical, it is psychological, it's emotional, it's mental. If you are in a situation where your voice is being denied, where you feel like you have to be quiet, that is also a form of subliminal abuse. So just be aware of that as well. And as you said, Melissa, this is like we're going to be talking a lot more in different episodes about abuse and recognizing abuse. So what I want to say to you, Melissa, and ask you, actually, you mentioned that when we've experienced pain, when people have experienced pain, we're almost like fallen angels. Like that, I use the mythology for fallen angels. We kind of want to like wrap our wings, the giant wings, around other people, and we almost miss the cues sometimes of abuse.
Mm-hmm.
So do you remember what those cues were? Or were you able
You
to
know
recognize?
what? I do remember what the cue was, that something wasn't right, and it was a form of control. So basically, and it's really simple. I had landlords coming around to do an inspection. I wanted to do the gardens, and the partner in particular got really aggressive and said, "No, you need to speak to me." And I said, "I've only got 3 or 4 hours." And this was the first kind of sign. And it was like an insistent kind of, motion of texting. And I just thought, this is not right. This is not right. I've been really clear in my communication. But did I get out there? No. There was like this red flag like waving above my head. And no. But
Right.
something that I do want to share is, if you are in an abusive situation and you have had, say, like my story or something like that, which has given you that kind of tendency to end up there, remember you have resilience. Going through any kinds of trauma and things like that, I believe, especially at a young age, or any time actually, builds up resilience and survival within us. And I think that we are absolutely survivors. And if you can kind of grapple that and use that as your superpower to move through what you're going through, you will come out the other end.
Beautiful.
Resilience is just,
Resilience is incredible.
yeah.
And the brain also, obviously, I mean, talking about survival, the brain actually warns us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's more of the survival mechanism that we move through
Yeah.
along the journey of trauma. But absolutely, we have got that inner fire and that inner strength and that currency that really wakes us up. I guess for me, I call that the light, or the or spirit, or that wise keeper that signals that we can move through this. And that's, I mean, you're also a living proof of that.
Yes.
So
Here I am, still here.
how have you come to be the person that you are? Okay, so using all of these traumas and these experiences and the neurodivergence in your family, how have you been able to access? Actually, before I ask that, have there been any addictions along the way that have? No. Okay, cool. All right. So how have you been able to access your resilience?
Through my passions.
Okay.
Things that make life worth living. And I think that, even in dark times, because I did go through my own mental health, as I've said, I did have, about 6 years where I really struggled, like I had an event happen. And I think that actually broke me mentally. I think I had been in survival mode for so long, and then everything kind of just went downhill. So even in that time, the things that kept me going were obviously my daughter, so family, people that we love around us, and our passions. And I've just always known that I've been able to come out of things. So I think that resilience is really, is a really strong point. So even if I was in situations and that kind of thing, there's like this tug inside of me that just is like, keep going, there's more to this, and so the more we do that, it's like the more we listen to our intuition as well, it's like a muscle, so the more we use it, the better it gets at working. And so I think I would like to say that even though I've had struggles, I've always been in an intuitive kind of state, and I've always followed my intuition the best that I can. And I think that has really pulled me through and led me to where I am today, and it's led me to meet certain people. Obviously, I'm in a beautiful, safe relationship now, and I have people around me that, really care about me, and I really care about them. And I think it's never a coincidence. When we meet people, the things that we do, when we decide to turn left instead of turning right. And I think people need to listen to that, and I understand that people might go, but I'm speaking, I'm traumatized. So how do I know that's not trauma? And how do I know that's, intuition and that type of thing? Sometimes you don't.
Mm.
You just got to follow it,
Yeah, you've got to kind of have that courage, I guess, that
Yeah.
initial courage and that faith and that inner trust, even if I guess you don't trust the voice
Yeah.
of where you're being led, it's that inner trust of your spirit, yourself, that
And I think
something
addressing,
inside of you lives there to guide you.
yeah, sorry. I think, sorry, I didn't mean to like jump in.
No, now we're getting into it. This is good.
Yeah, it's also addressing things like, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. You can't just do one thing or another thing. You can start, and you can kind of dabble into things, but you have to understand and realize that the healing journey or moving into, a better place, requires looking at all of those things. And, the funny thing that actually got me on the very start of my, what I would say, looking at the physical health journey was, I was just continuously exhausted, at that 3 o'clock, just so tired, no matter how much sleep I got, and you could say, yes, it's trauma. Yes, it's neurodivergency. Yes, you had endometriosis and I'm going to say, which I have now cured.
Well done.
Yes, so
Amazing.
I'd love to talk about that on a whole different podcast, because I am so strong about empowering women about their hormone health and dealing with these chronic diseases.
Fantastic. I would be super
Yeah.
happy for
Yeah, so I'm not a
50
doctor,
years of personal
but I can
reasons
speak from my own
to have
journey.
you on the show and speak about that.
Yeah, but the first thing was is I actually went into like a health shop, and my kind of mid to late 20s, and they said, it sounds like you've got adrenal fatigue. And it was the first time I'd ever heard adrenal fatigue. You've got to remember, I lived most of my life just getting up every day and trying to deal with anxiety and things like that. So I'd never heard of that. So they actually gave me a supplement, and that like to help me with my adrenal fatigue. And that was the pivotal moment that got me started on looking at natural health and supplements, and what adrenal fatigue, what's adrenal, like that. I was just so naive. Thankfully we have a lot of people sharing a lot more things, and if we're scrolling on social media, so many videos and things come up, you can get lost in it, but there's some good things. And so that's where it kind of started. And so I really actually first started looking at my body, before anything else. And then I started learning about, like I said, a dysregulated nervous system, what we need, and so health and lifestyle became kind of my first starter. I was also on quite a very woo-woo spiritual journey at the same time, which was cool, doing mediumship readings and shop and, all that kind of stuff. So, it was kind of those two things. And for me, lastly, the mental health side of things came. So I began therapy a few years ago. I'm still in therapy. And I actually think that it's a really important part if we can find the right person. We have to sort that side of things out. And of course, I discovered, you know, um, things about myself that I didn't know, and it really helped all the kind of chips fall into place. So it's having that complete look. And if you're in a space where you are just feeling so overwhelmed, I'm speaking to anybody who's listening, and, going, I can't fix my life. My life has been like this for 25 years, and my life has been like this for 35 years. Find something small, and it could take you years to really work through that, and that's okay, and that's, I think it just, when you have been through, like you say, the dark night of the soul, or when life has really dealt you, a rough hand of cards, it just seems like you are in this pit that you cannot crawl out of.
Hmm.
And you can.
You
You
can.
can.
Yeah,
And
it's temporary.
starting small. Well, yeah, I mean, obviously the course of, the life and things like that have created this. But if you start small and just think you can't do everything at once, and if you try and do everything at once, then it's impossible. And you need to go inwards. And, my biggest thing, and I even say when I'm working with clients, is like, what is, because they might come in with this big, like, they want, some kind of big spiritual reading and all that kind of thing. And then I say, so what is bothering you the most at the moment in your life? And that's where we start. And obviously it ends up absolutely
Okay.
perfect. But whether it's health or whether it's mental wellness or whatever it is, pick one thing and focus on it and build that bridge from there.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you go straight into the root. It might not be the visible root, but it's the physical root that's manifesting, that's being unpleasant for them. You go straight into that and unpack, and focus on that and be committed to that, is what I'm hearing you saying. And understanding also that it's a journey. It's a journey. And I love that you're still in therapy. And I always advise and encourage people to see a therapist to maintain their vitality, and to learn a little bit more about themselves, not just when things go wrong, not just when they are in survival, not just when they are in panic or crisis, but actually bring that into your world as a lifestyle choice to receive that support, essentially.
Yeah.
That
And
guidance.
our partners are not our therapists. And so
Yes.
I think
I talk to you about relationships, but go for it.
yeah, look, I think that one of the things that we kind of do ourselves is, while we are looking, while we be saviors, is we're looking for a savior as well. So anyone who's been through, that kind of trauma, and I'm sure a lot of people could relate to the daydreaming that goes on about that knight in shining armor. And I'm not saying it's from watching, fairy tales and things like that. I'm saying it is developed from deep-seated trauma, and that's how we basically, we look at how we need to be saved. And people around us, yes, people will hold space for us and love us and support us for who we are, absolutely, especially if they really genuinely love us. But what I have learned over the years is nobody is going to be my savior. I am my own savior. And I need to deal with that stuff myself. Yes, you can share if you're having a bad day or whatever it is, but do not expect that person to fix you and to heal you. It's hard
Beautiful.
enough, expecting someone to live with you when you're neurodivergent and have all these quirks and things that trigger you, and and that takes a deep level of understanding and respect and being able to communicate. But yeah, like, use what you have around you through therapy, whether it's breath work, whether it's yoga, whether you like to go to the gym, all of these different things, they are your saviors, and keep that separate from your relationship. I mean, you might want to do some activities together, but what I'm saying is your partner is not your sponge for everything that is going on in your head that you need to sort out and organize and fix. And especially someone with ADHD, you definitely can't just use them as a soundboard continuously. So therapy is really good for that as well.
Yeah. And I love, leveraging off all of the resources,
Yeah.
nature, the water, exercise, reading, poetry, learning something new. Find your gift and allow it to teach you. It essentially becomes your teacher, I feel like. I know for me, that's what has helped support and heal me in the journey. I wanted to ask you, Melissa, would you say that really understanding your triggers are also important? do you have a message for the viewers in regards to really learning about, obviously accessing the resources and bringing in the gifts and leveraging and using that as your saving grace? But what about actually the internal journey of being really very real and getting to know the self and learning about what activates you, what triggers you, what brings you into a place of crisis? What is a traumatic experience or an event? Kind of learning about your triggers. What advice do you have for your viewers, for our viewers, in regards to that? Because that can be quite confronting. We want to push that away.
The first thing I want to say is acceptance.
Okay, beautiful.
Accept that it is part of you. Accept that it's always going to be with you, but you can have ways, so you're never going to be able to just push it away.
Okay.
But you can have a management plan. And, the more you use your management plan, the better and easier things are going to get. So, like for me, going from a state of, like I just couldn't even do the simplest things in society. They were extremely, anxiety driving and that kind of thing, to where I'm at now. It's accepting that, hey, I process things differently, I feel things differently. What can I do to help make that easier? Whether it is extra planning. One of the things that I have done is I've actually, even though I'm quite busy, I actually have made my life quite simple and what I would say safe. So I'm not a huge socialite. I love people, but I'm not a huge socialite. And I have accepted that I am not a huge socialite. People will, oh, but you need to, you this, you don't, no, you don't. Listen to yourself and be okay with that. And I think that the more we become okay with who we are and gain confidence around that, the better we actually get, the less we actually get triggered. I mean, I went and, it sounds silly, but like I have those loop ear plugs, those,
Yes,
so
nice. Yeah.
still kind of hear. So days where like my system, it's not nowhere near as bad as what it used to be, but I recognize that there's days where my system, like a little bit more jumpy. I will put them in because I can't expect my family members to not be making noise or to not be listening to music. So it's how can we work ourselves in to be compatible? Yes, there has to be a level of respect, on all things, but we can't expect people to change their lives to suit us. So it's about having a safety plan and looking at each trigger and working out a way that you can do it better, that you can survive it and get through it. So things like earplugs, and just learning breath work, understanding, that you can go and reset with your breath. There's so many different techniques and that type of thing, that actually help us return back to source, that help us return back to who we are, and will bring ourselves out of those states. So that's like the everyday living. Obviously, when you're in like a PTSD, attack or something like that, that's a whole different ball game. That's
That's
very
more crisis management.
that's crisis management. But yeah, it's acceptance, and I think and it's kind of organizing, because one of the things that we struggle with, whether we're traumatized or neurodivergent, is organizing ourselves in a way that we feel comfortable being in the spaces around us. And so you need to organize and understand that you might create like this space that's about this big to begin with. And what you need to do is you need to stick with that, and you don't need to let other people tell you what you need to be doing.
Oh, so boom. And that is leading me to my next question.
Yeah.
That level of accountability, I guess, and that self-acceptance, how do you, or how have you, do you have any advice about how have you been able to communicate that to the people that you love? How have they been able to love you in your, self-acceptance, your neurodivergence?
Practicing communication.
Yeah, so communication.
Yeah, which can be very hard and very triggering in itself. And it's finding out your style of communication. Mine is actually writing letters.
Beautiful. Okay, so you've been able to find the access to that.
Yeah. So, like, if I would go and try and speak about something, and in that level of what we would say confrontation, or speaking about things that are yeah, that we just find incredibly impossible. For me, writing letters works. And people might say that doesn't have any accountability. Well, it does, because I'm there to have the conversation after I've handed the letter over. So it really does. But yeah, communication. And I think it's actually the more you learn about yourself that makes it easier. So as you learn about yourself, it makes it easier to express to those around you, and having really clear, genuine, honest conversations, and also having emergency plans put in place. If you're really, so
Tell me about an emergency, like give me an example of an
I,
emergency.
to avoid confusion, yeah. So just like an emergency plan is, so if I am feeling, really overstimulated and hypersensitive, I literally, my family knows that if I just say triggered, they'll leave me alone.
Beautiful.
That's it.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep, I'll come back, and that avoids the, oh, that person's avoiding things, that person's not,
Okay.
they're running away,
Yeah,
trigger,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
it. And
yeah.
they'll be like, okay. And it can
All
be
right,
really
great.
annoying and frustrating for them. Do you know what I mean? But I have to make sure that after that, I allow myself to have an open space for them once I have, done what I needed to do. Yeah.
So, and I guess essentially it's really important for people around you as well, because if you take time away and they've got a trauma around being abandoned, it could be a double-edged sword almost. And so it's activating yourself, it's activating that. So I love what you've said is like creating that safe space of you coming back once you've had that space, whether it be writing a letter and then having a conversation about it where I guess everybody can't always feel safe, but creating the safety that you need. Do they also, people around you, did they also know how to create that for themselves within the container?
Yeah, I think so. And I think, the more we talk about things in relationships and with family members and things like that, but I do want to go back to that it really works when you know yourself.
Yeah, beautiful.
It's whatever situation you're in, as long as you can know yourself and work through that, then it goes from there. So it's not necessarily about the other people. Obviously, if you're in a situation or in a space where you're not being treated how you should be and that kind of thing, then that's completely different. But you have to be okay with yourself and the way you are, and then everybody else is actually okay
Oh,
with you too.
yeah,
That's
beautiful.
how it works. Like,
Yeah,
that's the medicine.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it's
Yeah.
it's also like people can feel that genuine, authentic ability so that they can feel like, okay, she's creating some safe space, or that person's creating safe space. It doesn't mean that I'm in danger. It just means that they've gone off to do what they need to do. It almost can give permission for the other person to do the same.
Yeah. And it comes through learning and experience, like I look back in relationships that I've had and that kind of thing, and I can see now, like, as we do, we reflect and, self-reflect and things like that. And when things come up, and I can see now where, you know, my state of mind and my, hyperactive nervous system and things like that have actually caused problems, and I didn't realize it when it was happening,
Yeah.
and so it's about being able to own that and fix it and not repeat those,
No, and forgive yourself
mistakes.
for not knowing.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Self-forgiveness, self-acceptance, but also like, have you had to journey through, okay, gosh, I've left maybe some war zones in the trail of me actually learning about self-acceptance. Have you had to go
Yeah.
through that process of self-forgiveness?
Yeah, and I think these things don't really like they don't really rise up to us as opportunities if we haven't actually taken the time to do some self work. And I think that, life in general, a lot of people just kind of move through the motions. And whether it's through like naivety and not realizing there's other things out there, maybe it's through, they absolutely are, square minded and, kind
Yeah.
of do the same thing. They don't receive the same opportunities to, I would like to say, people who are more seekers, people who, um, yeah, like like whether it's going through yoga or what, all the different holistic things that we have available for us. These, not everything is right for every person, but these things that are out there absolutely genuinely work because they allow us to explore like the landscape of our minds, the landscape of our bodies, and that type of thing. And you will not come to a space out the other end of it if you do not do this. If you do not spend time self-reflecting in a safe,
Yeah.
in a
No
safe.
one's exempt.
Yeah. Well, your life is not going to change if you don't do these things. And they're tools. They are really, really tools, and they are there. It's through ancient cultures and history, and all of these things that westernized kind of people are just kind of accepting. These things have been around for a really long time for a really good reason. So and it's nobody's fault. If you look at society and the way that we've kind of been brought up, apart from the last, I'd say, 20 years or so, most of that stuff was really kind of unheard of or not looked at. So we are so fortunate with the way things are moving and the availability and the fact that people are speaking about things.
I love that.
They never used to speak about things. So that's been a huge part of my recovery, is self-exploration and not being afraid to step outside of the norm, and not being afraid to do things that other people would never have thought of doing.
So, Melissa, I've got one final question for you.
Yeah.
You've spoken about the self-exploration and the self-trust and the resilience, which is so empowering. What about your relationships with others, significant others? How have you been able to lean into trusting people that care about you, or opening your heart up again, I guess, after pain and abuse?
Yeah.
Has that been a difficult journey, or has that come?
Actually, yeah. No, it has, and I spent a lot of my time on my own. So yeah, a huge amount of my time on my own. Isolated myself a lot from people, and including parts of my family and that type of thing as well. So that side of things has not really, because that, and especially in the time where I wasn't understanding who I was or working through things. So I just thought that there was something wrong with me. So I really shut myself off. And so, yeah, again, if you're listening and you're in that space of, doing that and isolating yourself, be brave and let people into your life.
What would 3 things that you would say to them, that you would say to us, that supported you to let people in? Because sometimes it's really, really hard. You've just been hurt time and time again. People have let you down. You've been betrayed. You've been abandoned. You've been used. People have said that they've got your back and they don't. So how have, is it trusting the right people? Is it?
You have to trust yourself first.
Yeah.
Again, for me, when I started trusting myself, that was when I had the ability to kind of open my arms to other people. So it does start.
Beautiful. I love that.
Yeah, it starts within, and then you have the ability to
Yeah.
spread that out. Yeah, that's probably the biggest thing. And just trying to think, like, how else to articulate it.
No, I feel like that's key.
Yeah, yeah. And again, not everybody is out there to hurt you, and I think that you have that. Yeah,
That's
and
incredible.
yep. Yeah, there are people that love each other, and I think that we actually, as a community and as people, we actually need to shine a light for others and understand that people heal through loving and supporting ourselves and other people, and bringing back community, bringing back knowing who your neighbors are, bringing back, wanting to basically stop the isolation that is happening in the world, because you don't have to be someone who's suffered like trauma or abuse.
Oh, absolutely.
So many people feel isolated in the world. So but yeah, you can't reach out to others if you haven't reached out to yourself first. So it starts in here. Yeah.
And I especially like post-COVID, pre-COVID, post-COVID, it was um it was so revealed to us, the disconnection and the crisis in consciousness. Especially when families were reunited and then spoken to each other for so long, and now they have to live together again. And it's my belief is connection and learning how to embrace community, trusting yourself and extending that trust to your neighbors, to people who actually want to work as a team and really start designing our societies from a conscious, from a connected point of view. I feel like that's really important. And that can't happen until you actually know yourself and there's a level of self-acceptance and a level of understanding and wisdom that is generated through your experience. So I really want to acknowledge that, Melissa.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that, because one of the biggest things during COVID that I dealt with my clients were actually people who had to move back in with their parents and things like that.
Totally.
And they were struggling because
Totally.
you've got this wave of, like, what I would say Ford's emotional thinkers living with the archaic, patriarchal, mental kind of thinkers. And it was just like this clash,
Yeah.
and the struggle was real. Like,
Yeah.
people were just, and it was really
For real.
interesting to show the way forwards. And do you know what my word is for that also? Acceptance.
Acceptance. Yeah, I'm loving that. I'm
They're
feeling
never
like
going to
that's
change.
yeah.
And you have to accept who you are and accept them and love them for who they are. And, that time will go. And, we are paving the way for that more emotional, more consciously, aligned and awake world. So,
I love
yeah.
that. Now, do you have one word or one message that you would like to leave our viewers with
Yeah.
today?
Be kind. Be kind to whoever you see on the street. Be kind with your thoughts. Be kind with your tongues. Be kind with your minds and your bodies. You never know what somebody is dealing with. And I think that it's really important that we start to be a lot more considerate and compassionate, and just remove, and if you're someone who's been through trauma yourself and are still in that really angry kind of hateful mode, be kind with yourself first, so then you can be kind with others. But yeah, my message is be kind, because you just never know. And if you actually take the time, what you were doing, Mary, to speak to people and hear their stories and things like that, some people have been through some absolutely shocking travesties. And I think that my thing is, way on the smaller end of scale compared to so many people out there. And, by holding space for them and being kind, smile at someone, smile at everyone you see, just be kind and stop judging people. And because if you're judging people, then you haven't accepted yourself either.
Absolutely.
So
Oh,
just spread the love and be kind, not in a silly woo-woo way, in a real,
in a real,
genuine,
genuine, authentic
yeah,
way.
like, be kind. And because you can feel it. You can feel when people are struggling. You can feel when people, just need that smile or the sparkle in your eyes and that kind of thing. And yeah, obviously the more we heal, the more we can, share that and recognize that in people. So yeah.
You are absolutely amazing. It's no
Thank
wonder I've loved you for all of these years. Without this is probably our very first proper conversation, face to face. So I'm very grateful for you. I appreciate you have really inspired and humbled me. I also want to acknowledge that it's not easy to share your story out there with people that know you, let alone sharing your voice and your story with the world to be a beacon of light, to actually shed more truth and more consciousness, and encourage others to be able to access that resilience that you were talking about, and to really hold on to their gifts and whatever it is, their saving grace, whether it be water or nature or whatever it is. So I want to acknowledge you. Thank you. I also want to invite you. I want to invite the viewers, if you've got any questions or you want to be in contact with myself or Melissa, I'm going to drop in some information afterwards so that you are able to actually ask questions. If there is anything else that you would like to know or you would like Melissa to speak about, I would love to invite her on the podcast again. It feels like you've got an array of different
Yeah.
modalities and
So
experiences
many things, it could
happen
go in
to.
so many directions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so please let us know, send us an email, drop us a message, and I would love to invite you back on the show, Melissa. Thank you so much for today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a real pleasure and absolutely beautiful to speak with you, Mary. And I would love to come back.
Yay.
Like,
Me
yes.
too. We might make you a key speaker on this podcast. I could listen to you forever. Thank
Oh,
you so
anytime I
much.
do a video on online, people are like, "Can you do more?" And I'm just like, "Oh, I really need
Yeah.
that push. Like someone needs to push me." So,
Okay, well, that might just be me.
yeah. And
Thank
thanks
you.
for everyone watching as well. And I hope that, you've gained something out of it today. And absolutely, if you've got any questions or anything else you'd like to know or anything you'd like us to speak about, we can't give away all the juicy details just in text. So, yeah, throw it out there. No subject is too big or small.
No, no worries. Have a beautiful day, Melissa, and thank you so much for tuning in, everybody.
Bye.